Greetings to everyone out there in the NoDQ galaxy. Welcome to the NoDQ panel here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRift Today's topic will be SummerSlam, since we do have the 32nd, I believe, SummerSlam coming up. 31 SummerSlams to discuss, lots of history, some good SummerSlams, not so good SummerSlams, and a very mixed bag in between. So what we are going to do today is talk about some of our favorite SummerSlams, the ones we recommend checking out, and also the SummerSlams that you should avoid at all costs. Now let me go ahead and real quick introduce the panel guests. First we have the Wizard of No DQ, Mr. Stephen Osborne. How's it going, my man?
How's it going, Aaron? Thanks for having me on the panel today. As you can see, I finally got my shirts in. I got one for me, I got one for my mom, and I think that's about all the shirts that I'm probably going to sell. But thank you for the opportunity to get a shirt with my name on it with the No DQ logo, so I appreciate that. How's it going, everybody?
Going good.
I had a little bit of enjoyment last night. I watched SummerSlam 97, and that was fun. And then I started going through the list of SummerSlams and went from smiles to frowns and everything in between. And I'm really looking forward to this video. How are you doing, son?
Well, first, I hope you end up selling a lot of those shirts. So let's have the faith there. Yeah, so guys, it's really cool to finally be here on NoDQ.com. When I first met you guys, I told you I've been a big fan since 2009. So to actually be on an official NoDQ video, it's really awesome. So yeah, you guys who don't know me, on YouTube, I have a very special way of introducing myself, and that's, hey everybody, son, Goku here. So yeah, I do a lot of voice acting and all that stuff, and I have a very enthusiastic personality. So I'm definitely ready to go ahead and talk about SummerSlam, the second biggest show of the year, the biggest party of the year, as they like to say. So definitely let's go through some of the ups and some of the downs, and let's kick things over to you, Steve-O.
Top that.
Hey guys, good to be back on NoDQ. Hopefully I will do a better display than the last time on Wrestling Trivia Challenge. I run Too Sweet Cosplay. It's a wrestling group primarily based in Chicago, but we showcase all over the world different people doing wrestling-based cosplays. Son actually goes to many of our shoots. He's a great guy, so he's no stranger to me whatsoever. Ready to do some discussion with you all.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thank you all for being on. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the SummerSlam pay-per-views. So what I would like to do is go to each one of you and get your opinion on your all-time favorite SummerSlam pay-per-view. We all might have different opinions. We all might agree on one pay-per-view. I'm just curious to see what you guys think. So, Stefan, let's start with you, since you are a long-time NoDQ contributor on the channel. Let's hear it from you. Your all-time favorite SummerSlam.
Well, I am a longtime fan of the channel. Well, I'm a longtime fan of the website. I've been around since it was on Tripod, I believe.
Wow.
And yeah, it was hard to remember. I remember I was recommended the website by somebody I knew that loved wrestling, and it was hard to remember, but it was always worth going to because you had all of the news. Like, it wasn't picking and choosing from other websites off of Alta Vista. You had all the news. So I do appreciate that from you, Aaron Rift.
Thank you.
As far as my favorite SummerSlam, you would think I'd be biased because I just watched 97, and 97 was a great SummerSlam. But when I started going through the list, it really didn't take me long to go from my favorite to my least favorite. But my favorite was 2000. 2000 was just a great SummerSlam. And I wrote down all the matches, but I suppose we can get into that after we do our rounds. But yeah, 2000 is my tops.
Well, that's definitely towards the top for me. That show had some great matches. Of course, the big TLC match with Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys. And the main event with Kurt Angle, Triple H, and The Rock, with Kurt Angle pretty much taking a bad bump on that announce table and then coming back at the end of the match. I mean, that SummerSlam had a lot of great moments. Also, Shane McMahon taking that big fall Lots of good stuff on that pay-per-view. Steve-O, any particular memories you have of that SummerSlam, and where do you rank that one? Is that towards the top for you?
It is. It is a very good pay-per-view. I don't know if it's like one of my top 5 or not, but yeah, going back to it, yeah, the TLC match, that was fantastic. Shane McMahon bumping. It was against Steve Blackman, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that was insane. I was like, I can't believe that happened. And actually, I really liked Steve Blackman as hardcore champion. I thought he was pretty underrated. And then, like you mentioned, Kurt Angle was there. I thought he was, I thought that triple threat was very good. And yeah, it definitely deserves to be considered one of the best ones. Maybe not one of my top into when it's time, but I certainly enjoyed it. Son, what did you think?
SummerSlam 2000 is definitely in one of my top favorites. That's for sure. That entire year of 2000, honestly, from top to bottom, is my overall favorite year in the WWE period. I loved everything about that. Now, I grew up definitely in the Attitude Era, and 2000, I thought just was an incredible year from top to bottom. As far as my all-time favorite SummerSlam match, it's not going to be an original answer, but honestly, I don't think there's not a lot of people out there that's going to argue with it, and I would have to say probably for me, SummerSlam 2002. Oh, yeah. I mean, just from top to bottom, a lot of people consider WrestleMania 17 their favorite all time, and that's usually the SummerSlam that comes up as their all-time SummerSlam. That match between Shawn Michaels and Triple H, it was incredible. I remember, I kid you not, back the cable we had, something was wrong with the cable box. It would always digitize everything when we would order the pay-per-view. So I knew if I ordered the pay-per-view, it's going to be a mess. I didn't care. I wanted to see the Heartbreak Kid, the showstopper, Shawn Michaels back in the ring, because man, I grew up watching this guy when I was a kid. And the match him and Triple H, and I fell for everything. They completely worked me on all the injuries, the back injury with Shawn Michaels, and not only that, The Rock and Brock Lesnar, the match that those two had, and just the build-up. I really wish the WWE would go ahead and build up more matches like that, how they showed The Rock training, Brock training, showing how serious they were taking and putting over the Undisputed Championship as the richest prize in the business, as what it's supposed to be. And the match delivered. The Rock put over Brock Lesnar like $1 million, and it kickstarted Brock Lesnar into the superstar that we know him as today. And then there was a lot of other matches on there that I think kind of just basically the undercard was really good, and you lead up to those two matches. So for me, SummerSlam 2002.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that one. I think 2002 is my top SummerSlam just because the card was so solid. And like you said, Triple H and Shawn Michaels was a phenomenal match. And what a comeback for Shawn Michaels. People were uncertain about what he would be able to do, but they played up the whole back injury and made that part of the storytelling. And every time they did a move with Shawn Michaels' back, I was just cringing because I thought, oh, this guy's back is so messed up. So they really worked that well into the story. And of course, Brock Lesnar, star-making performance there, beating The Rock. Great match there. And the crowd was red hot for that, too. That was a really fun match to watch just because of the atmosphere for it. And you look at some of the matches on this card, it opened with Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio. That's a pretty strong match to open SummerSlam. One of the best opening matches for SummerSlam, in my opinion. You had Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho, Edge versus Eddie Guerrero, Rob Van Dam versus Chris Benoit. So overall, really solid card from start to finish. Stefan, anything you wanted to add about SummerSlam 2002 or anything you wanted to add about SummerSlam 2000?
Well, shoot, SummerSlam 2002 was just my biggest. That was, like Son said, the build-up between Brock Lesnar and The Rock. It reminded me of a Rocky movie, and that's probably on purpose. But it was so well done, and it really made you want to root for either. I mean, if you were that diehard of a Rock fan, even with The Rock as the heel character, and you wanted to, it gave you purpose. It built that matchup really well, and it made Brock Lesnar a main event star. So yeah, I would say 2002 would be in my top 5, if not my top 3. But for me, I guess, because as a kid, especially back in 2000, I was always torn between WCW and WWF. And for me, WCW was always my mainstay. Even though it was terrible, looking back on it now, it was terrible. But back then, it wasn't terrible to me. I just enjoyed watching it. I was a kid. So as a kid for SummerSlam 2000, I was just watching it as a fan. I wasn't critiquing anything really. And yeah, that one was just my favorite overall. I think just because it had that good combination of really good matches, but it was still kind of quirky. It had Chyna winning the IC title in a tag match, in an intergender tag match, which is quirky enough to go into, let alone the fact that she won, even though she at that was her second title win for the IC champ, so she was credible at that point. But it was still kind of wacky. But you also had TLC, which was amazing. And then you had The Rock and Triple H and Angle, and it just, for me, as a fan, as a young fan, or younger, I guess, that was my SummerSlam.
Yeah, and like Josh said, let me try to pronounce it Sun Goshuaku.
Sun Goshuaku.
Nice. As you pointed out, that was during the Attitude Era. That was arguably WWE's best year creatively with the Attitude Era, and you also had some great wrestling. You had Benoit and the Radicals that came in. You had Kurt Angle, his rise to the top. So wrestling-wise and creative-wise, 2000 was a really strong year, and SummerSlam was perhaps when things had really reached its peak with the Attitude Era in terms of the overall excitement and the strength of the brand. So Steve-O, you mentioned that SummerSlam 2000 is towards the top for you. So what's your number one? I mean, we just talked about 2002. Is that your number one? If not, what would be the next one on your list towards the top?
1998, Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Highway to Hell.
Like a hot moment. Yep, Highway to Hell, AC/DC music playing. So I'm a Ken Shamrock fan. I know some people are mixed on him. I did enjoy him taking on Owen Hart in the Lions Den match. I thought that was cool. There was also, the Triple H versus The Rock for the Intercontinental title. I thought that was great. I thought that, this was like one of the early matches of theirs, and then they just like throughout 2000, they would have countless world title matches against each other. So it was kind of a nice look into the future. They start from the mid card, go on up to even bigger feuds. But yeah, 1998 was a great SummerSlam for me personally. What do you guys think?
Well, I agree with you on 1998. That one's really strong. And when I watched Triple H and The Rock at that time, my thought was, this is the match that is going to make these guys. These guys are going to be major stars. To me, that was really the match that defined them as main event talent.
Yeah.
They took that next step from being the strong mid-carders, and they took that step to being top guys. That was the match that I thought really was their transitional period. Really fun to go back and watch it to see how they evolved and rose to the top. And of course, Undertaker and Steve Austin. What a storyline heading into that, by the way. Lots of memorable moments, and that match was really fun to watch. Just a great main event, and I really like SummerSlam '98. Stefan, your thoughts on that one?
Well, I should have been partial to 98 too, because I just watched that a few months ago, and yeah, 98 was great. 98 the year. I'm not sure if 98 was the best year of WWE. I don't know if I agree with Aaron. I'm more prone to 99. And that SummerSlam was awesome as well. But, I mean, if you take any SummerSlam probably between 96 and 2000, 2001, 2, 3, in that era before they started getting so PG and then eventually kind of G. Those are the ones to pick from, I think, and that's probably why we've all kind of migrated around 2000. Notice 2000, 98, 2000, and 2002, they're all within the same 5-year period.
Right, and you mentioned 97, too. 97 had Bret Hart versus The Undertaker with Shawn Michaels as the special referee, and I love that storyline where if Shawn was unfair, he would never wrestle in the United States again, and Bret said he would never wrestle in the United States if he lost. That was a really intriguing storyline, and of course, I love the finish of that match with Bret spitting in Shawn's face, and then Shawn swinging the chair and hitting Undertaker by mistake. Perfect finish in my opinion. I thought it was brilliant. So
Yeah, Michaels.
any other thoughts you have on 97 or 98?
Well, yeah, Michaels at the end of that match, just the look on his face as he was counting the 3 for the pinfall was just priceless. I mean, he ended that pay-per-view perfectly. Just counted the 3 and then headed to the back. He was disgusted with himself, but he had to save his career because if he didn't count the 3, then he would have been in favor of the Undertaker and he would have not been able to wrestle in the United States as well. So it was a brilliant match, and the whole card was great. Of course, it's fresh in my mind. I watched it last night, but yeah, 97 was great, and I almost leaned toward 97, but I had to go with 2000. Once I started remembering the storylines and everything building up to 2000, that was my favorite.
All right, and Josh, any other thoughts you have on 97, 98?
Yeah, 97, Mick Foley doing the elbow off the steel cage against Triple H. Good stuff. I did like the Owen Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin match. Yeah. A lot of people remember the pile driver, and of course, Steve Austin, as he's claimed on his own podcast, the worst roll-up ever in the history of the business, but he still finished the match. I thought that was good stuff. And Shawn Michaels selling as a referee, not to get too much into WrestleMania, but he did a good job selling as a referee in the end of an era match. No different here in this match. So just showing the talent of Shawn Michaels to sell, whether he's in-ring performing wrestling-wise or even as a referee. And 1998, definitely one of my top favorite ones. 1998 is a special year for me because I started watching wrestling 94 and through 97. I was kind of off and on, but once 1998 hit and Steve Austin basically blew up in popularity, became my all-time favorite. I was a wrestling fan, hooked for life till this day. So yeah, everything, that build-up, The Rock and Triple H's build-up, just everything they were doing for the Intercontinental title, especially if you go back and watch some of those classic Attitude Era video package promos, and Jim Ross and the way he's on commentary and everything just made the Intercontinental title feel so special. And the reaction when Triple H grabbed the Intercontinental title and won. And Stone Cold and Undertaker, one of their, probably I say their best match I thought they had in the ring. Yeah. Oh man, stuff. I remember like the Undertaker doing and I think he may have broke his tailbone. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he broke his tailbone doing that spot where he jumped off the ropes to Steve Austin. I don't know if you guys heard the classic story of Steve Austin tell when I think Taker popped up and knocked Steve Austin out, and Austin he's said it tons of times on his podcast where he's like, I'm out, and I'm like, oh, Earl Hebner, where am I? He's like, you in the garden, boy, in the middle of the ring. But yeah, that was so epic. I remember the whole with Kane coming out, and he was like, is Kane gonna go ahead and help his brother win the title? And Undertaker said, no, go back there. It's gonna be me and you, Austin, one-on-one. Steve Austin gets a stunner, and then Undertaker's man's up, and he just gives Austin the title. The set, I love the way they did like the whole like garden to hell, the gate to hell, and everything. Back when they had the old MSG design. Edge made his debut in that show, so I mean, a lot of great stuff. I can go on and on, but yeah, 1998, 2000, 2002, 3 of those definitely in my top favorite SummerSlams. So yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you totally on that. Now, let's jump ahead a little bit to more recent years. So the past decade or so, SummerSlam has basically been in 2 locations for about 6 years. Yeah, it was 6 years. SummerSlam was in Los Angeles, and then the past 4 years, we've had SummerSlam in Brooklyn. Actually, 2015, this will be the 4th one in Brooklyn. But people ask me what was my favorite of the Staples Center SummerSlams. I was at all 6 of them, 6 in a row. I'm nuts. I would say 2013 was the strongest one, and one of my favorite SummerSlams overall. That, of course, had the Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk match, which in my opinion is Brock Lesnar's best WWE match of his second run. I think you can make an argument that it's his best WWE match, period. I just thought from the moment the bell rang, those two just had the instant chemistry working together, and I was glued. I was hooked to it right from the get-go. That's one of my favorites. And then, of course, the main event, Daniel Bryan, John Cena. Daniel Bryan finally winning the WWE title, but of course, the big swerve at the end with Triple H coming out, and he was the special guest referee for this. Randy Orton cashed in Money in the Bank. Triple H and Randy Orton were in collusion, the big heel turn. I thought it was great stuff, and that set up WrestleMania 30, excuse me, with Daniel Bryan finally winning the big one. So, Steve-O, your thoughts on that period overall, those SummerSlams from around that time? Would you say 2013 is the best one, or do you have another one that sticks out to you more?
I'm going to actually have to agree with you on 2013. I'm a huge Daniel Bryan fan, so seeing him defeat John Cena there for the WWE Championship was amazing. I mean, of course, I was upset that Randy Orton cashed in that night, but it built on to better things. They had a very good rivalry. Their WrestleMania 30 match with them and Dave Bautista was fantastic. Absolute great moments, but I did enjoy that. And looking over it, yeah, like we know that John Cena kind of buried the Nexus at SummerSlam 2010, but then years after, he was putting more talent over. 2011, CM Punk he let win. 2013, Daniel Bryan, and then 2016, AJ Styles got a defeat over him. So, and that was another one I liked a lot in this era. 2016, I thought there were some pretty solid matches, especially with John and AJ Styles there. But yeah, I really like 2013 quite a bit. Yeah, sorry, I take little notes to keep in mind. Yeah, Lesnar and CM Punk. That was one of the better matches of Lesnar's career. CM Punk did put Lesnar to work in this. I thought put a good fighting effort. Lesnar, of course, took the victory, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Stefan, what are your thoughts?
Well, my biggest memory of that match, and I guess it's a trend, it's always the main event, but was Daniel Bryan winning over John Cena. I was shocked. I was like, and I remember that moment. I remember where I was. I remember who I was with, and it was shocking. And from that moment on, I knew Daniel Bryan was destined for the main event, and sure enough, by WrestleMania, he was destined to be the champion. So it's probably up there. I don't know. I think I have to agree. I mean, the other ones you listed were great moments, but Daniel Bryan at the end just winning over John Cena it was so shocking. I have to put that one at the top, at least in recent memory.
Right on. All right, so let's go back in time a little bit and talk about some of the earlier SummerSlams. I know.
Hold on, let me
disclaimer.
Yeah, let Sun weigh in.
On the Staples Center ones.
Okay, yeah.
I was gonna say that 2013 definitely once again probably would be one of my favorites. I'm actually gonna say, Stephen, I was actually not shocked Daniel Bryan won because I was reading on NoDQ at the time rumors that John Cena basically would have to go, because he had that infection with his elbow and everything. So, but I love the way that they cleanly put him over, and I was okay with Randy Orton because at the time I thought, like most of us, it was a big grand scheme that was going to lead to Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. And while that is what happened, we all know that that was not the plan, but the fans basically in the circumstances forced WWE into that. And I totally agree. Brock Lesnar, one of his best matches since he came back against CM Punk. Enough can't be said about that one. And I was going to say I was a big fan of 2011. That whole 2011 period was fun with CM Punk and John Cena's rematch. I just wish John Cena would have lost clean. They didn't have to pull up the shenanigans. I was even excited for Kevin Nash to come back. Now, of course, we know what ended up happening later with the storyline, so I'm like, ugh. But, I thought that was pretty fun. SummerSlam 2012, I always wanted to see Brock Lesnar versus Triple H. That was cool. I just thought, if you take their WrestleMania match and give it their SummerSlam ending match, it would have been perfect. And then I'll say one of my least favorite SummerSlams of all time is 2010. The build up to that, a lot of the matches on the undercard, mostly when I think about SummerSlam 2010, Undertaker's return, Daniel Bryan's return were cool moments. We were all hyped for the Nexus in the hope that they were going to go somewhere with this. And then, of course, the ending and John Cena conquering them and even Edge and Jericho coming out since since then, saying that even Cena admits he was wrong for that one. That's probably going to rank down as far as one of my least favorite SummerSlams. And I was going to say, I didn't understand why they were putting them so much in the Staples Center. I think it's really cool if they go all over the country and everything and give everybody a chance to see. I know particularly me, you and me, Steve-O, we would love if they break SummerSlam to Soldier Field out here in Chicago, especially since it's sun. Yeah, I mean, it's sun, all the sunlight out here. It's outside. You don't got to really worry. But yeah, that's just a little bit my quick thoughts on the whole Staples era of SummerSlam.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I did want to mention 2011. That was probably my second favorite of the Staples Center ones. I also wanted to mention Randy Orton versus Christian for the world title, which I thought was a really solid match.
Yes.
That one was 2011. I really enjoyed that. All right, so let's go back here a little bit. So the earlier SummerSlams don't really get a lot of love from the younger fans. Looking back, I really enjoyed the 1991 SummerSlam, which of course had Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart for the IC title, which was a big turning point in Bret Hart's career when he won his first IC title. And that show had a lot of fun moments. LOD beating the Nasty Boys for the tag team titles. And, of course, the jailhouse match with the Big Boss Man and the Mountie, and the little skits with the Mountie going to jail. I thought that was very entertaining. And then we had the match made in heaven, the match made in hell. Hulk Hogan and the Warrior, the whole backstage story with the Warrior getting fired that day versus Team Slaughter. And then the marriage, and then the reception, which wasn't actually part of the pay-per-view, but Jake Roberts and The Undertaker crashing the wedding ceremony of Randy Savage and Elizabeth. That should have been on the pay-per-view, but that was a cool moment and a great storyline with Randy Savage and Jake Roberts. So overall, as a kid, I really enjoyed that SummerSlam, and I think it still has some replay value. So for those of you out there, you younger fans out there, I would definitely recommend checking that one out. Stefan, let's start with you. Any thoughts on the earlier SummerSlams? Any matches or moments that particularly stand out to you?
As big of a wrestling fan as I am, and as long standing as I've been watching Raw and pay-per-views in my adulthood, as a kid, I didn't watch until the NWO. And even then, I couldn't watch pay-per-views. I was poor, so our box would put us on the channel, but it would be all blurry. So on a Sunday night, I would sit there and I would do my homework and I would listen to the pay-per-views. So, but even still, that wasn't until '97. So until basically the Attitude Era, I can't really weigh in on SummerSlam. So I'll just sit back and reminisce with you guys if you have any memories of early '90s SummerSlams.
Well, Steve, is there anything that stands out to you from those early SummerSlams?
Well, actually, yeah. I started watching wrestling in general around. I went to my first house show December 1990. It was at the Rosemont Horizon, now known as the Allstate Arena. So it was pretty cool. Going in, 1991 is very memorable. I know most people would say WrestleMania 7 was a bust, but because that was the first pay-per-view I really ever ordered, I enjoyed that one. While I didn't order SummerSlam 1991, my mom's friends, her kids watched wrestling too, and they brought over a recorded copy of SummerSlam 1991. So I was very happy about that, getting to see Hogan and Warrior take on Sergeant Slaughter and his lackeys, General Adnan and Colonel Mustafa. I was just so happy to be able to see that match. And I agree, I love the match made in heaven with Macho Man and Elizabeth's wedding getting sabotaged by Jake the Snake and The Undertaker. I know that technically wasn't on the pay-per-view, but I thought that was an amazing moment. And I loved the whole Macho Man, Jake the Snake rivalry. I also marked out when the Legion of Doom defeated the Nasty Boys for the tag team titles. I thought that was a very good moment. I really enjoyed Big Boss Man defeating the Mountie then, and the Mountie having to spend the night in jail. It was a very funny segment. You guys should watch that on the network if you get a moment to do so. Another pay-per-view that, looking back, I liked a lot was, of course, the 1992 SummerSlam, where the British Bulldog defeated Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship that actually main evented the pay-per-view, which until like more recently isn't a common thing, like with Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler finally closing out the show for the IC title. It was kind of a nice change of pace to see that one being the main focus of the show. And also, they kind of did a return rivalry between the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man, who Macho Man had his retirement match the year before at WrestleMania 7. So I thought it was kind of cool seeing them go head-to-head as faces with each other. And then later on, they formed a team to take on Razor Ramon and Ric Flair. But, of course, Warrior had his issues and was taken out. But it was nice to see that coming up, and I thought it had some potential. But, yeah, I thought that 92 was a fun watch as well. Son Goshoku, how about you? What are some of your favorite early ones?
Yeah, so very much similar to Stefan. I mentioned earlier too in this discussion is that I started watching in 1994, but it wasn't until 1998 that I got really hooked. So I was off and on. But I've gone back and watched mostly clips and pieces and highlights, and I've of course heard tons of videos and everything of people who've gone back, such as Aaron Riff yourself, talking about those moments. I did see the where Mountie was had the jail skits and everything, funny stuff. Bret Hart, the matches he had in those early SummerSlams, you could definitely make an argument for him being Mr. SummerSlam. And, I've seen the Intercontinental title match with him and Bulldog, and that's become even more impressive. You guys heard the backstory to that. I think Bret said Bulldog showed up in pretty much no position to really compete. So he basically had to work Bulldog all through the match. And the fact that it turned out to that classic is true testament to both their skills. And as far as some of those early SummerSlam, I'll just pick some of the matches that I really love. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Owen Hart, 1994 in the steel cage match. That is bar none my favorite steel cage match. Incredible from top to bottom. I love that match. And then you get the ending and everything, how Owen's hanged up there and Bret drops down. Another match that I like too from that early SummerSlam, those early set of SummerSlams, 1995, the ladder match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. That was actually the first time I saw their ladder match. I didn't see their WrestleMania match. So growing up as a kid, watching that match, I thought it was incredible. I think that actually was my first ever ladder match. So I always have a fun place in my heart for that match. And of course, I did go back and watch their WrestleMania match and everything like that. But those were really cool. Till this day, I have not seen the Undertaker versus the Mock Undertaker, but I've heard everyone tell me that it was basically it's not worth seeing. One of these days, I will check it out. And I don't know if could we include 96 here in sure. Some of that early SummerSlam? 1996 SummerSlam. That was the first SummerSlam I watched straight through full. I love that SummerSlam. The Boiler Room Brawl. At that time, The Undertaker, Mankind was such a great counterpart. Everything, just the atmosphere of it, the way it shot it, and it really, I think, kind of really set the stone for the Attitude Era coming up, because we were going to see more of those backstage brawls. One of the unfortunate things about SummerSlam 96, especially with Vader recently passing, Steve-O, our friend, Man 0001, he admits he's a big Shawn Michaels fan, but he is very disappointed with how Shawn Michaels handled that match with Vader. When I first saw this match as a kid, I just looked at it as a match because I was all, yeah, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, and I hadn't seen Vader's matches. So as I've grown and learned more about Vader's career and learned more about the backstage aspects of it, it's very depressing to look back to see, man, that could have been Vader's run. It should have been Vader's monster run from 96 and everything. So it's really unfortunate. So when I actually go back and watch this match now through my adult eyes, I definitely know I'm going to have a different perspective looking at this match. And of course, hearing about the mega powers, how WWE used to subtly build those storylines up back in the 80s is something we don't get today. So I'm pretty sure, when I went back to watch all the WrestleManias, I'll have an appreciation just to sink in all the history that's built up WWE where it is. So that's basically my 2 cents on some of those early SummerSlams.
All right. Well, regarding Undertaker versus Undertaker, basically they had cool entrances, and once the bell rang, it was a dud. That's really all you need to know about it.
I've seen the entrances, but yeah, the in-ring.
Yeah.
I haven't seen The Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez. I did watch their WrestleMania match.
Oh, okay. We'll get to bad SummerSlams here in just a
Okay.
moment. But yeah, if we're talking about matches during that early period, like you said, Bret Hart, I think, was the MVP of those early SummerSlams. You look at 1990. Here's a match to watch: the Hart Foundation versus Demolition, 2 out of 3 falls. That one was great. 91, of course, Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect. Bret Hart versus Bulldog from 92. Even 93, which I will talk about 93 here in a minute. Bret Hart versus Doink the Clown, Jerry Lawler's court jester. The whole storyline there with Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler, that one's worth watching. And then, of course, 94, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, the steel cage match. Fantastic stuff there. 95, Bret, I think he fought Isaac Yankem, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. That might have been the only dud of Bret's SummerSlam run. And then he missed 96. 97, of course, we talked about it earlier with Undertaker. So, yeah. Those early SummerSlams, Bret Hart had some fantastic matches. Definitely one of the best MVPs of that period. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the worst ones. Now we have talked about the best SummerSlams. I'll go ahead and talk about the early bad SummerSlams first, just to get that out of the way. 1993, I think, was one of the worst ones for sure. Lex Luger versus Yokozuna for the WWE title, WWF back at the time. They spent several months building up Lex Luger, trying to make him the new Hulk Hogan. Then they had this match, and they ended it with a countout. Yokozuna got counted out, and Lex Luger celebrated like he won the title, like it was the greatest accomplishment of all time, winning the match by countout. It was so lame. The rest of the card was pretty lackluster. Unfortunately, during this period, 93 through 95, it was a down period in WWE's popularity. Their talent roster was quite thin, and there just wasn't much meat on this show. There wasn't a whole lot to get excited about. You had Mr. Perfect versus Shawn Michaels on the 93 card, and I actually thought that was a really disappointing match. Did not live up to my own personal expectations. Really, that Bret Hart versus Doink the Clown / Jerry Lawler match, to me, that's the only thing worth checking out on the 93 one. 95, the main event was Diesel versus Mabel for the WWE title. Do I really need to say more about that one? Very lackluster card overall, with the exception of that ladder match that was brought up earlier. So, Stefan, I'll start with you. Off the top of your head, in your opinion, worst SummerSlam ever? Avoid at all costs. What is it?
Well, when I went back looking at all the SummerSlams to try and make my picks, it literally went from best to worst in that quickly. 2001 for me was the worst SummerSlam I've ever had to sit through, and the basic gist of the reason is the horrible writing and the horrible build-up with all of the Alliance versus the WWE or WWF bullcrap. It's almost unbearable to watch just the pay-per-view, knowing all of the bad build-up and all of the crappy storylines that led up to these matches, which were, that pay-per-view, that SummerSlam, way heavily bordered on the side of quirky. It was. I mean, just the simple fact that the WCW Championship main evented the pay-per-view instead of the WWF Championship. I mean, that's weird.
Well,
but
that pay-per-view I thought was a very mixed bag, and of course, with the invasion storyline, the whole thing just didn't really feel right. And I do agree with you. It was weak in that sense. I thought the wrestling was pretty good, but again, the bad writing and the storytelling definitely hurt that one. But I don't know if I would put that among the bottom pay-per-views. I mean, Steve-O, your thoughts on that one? Would you put that towards the bottom, or do you think Stefan's being too harsh on it?
Well, I would say that, 2001, it did sour me on wrestling for a while. Like, I thought that they pissed away a good storyline with WCW and ECW. Like, those guys never looked very strong against WWE until Stone Cold joined Team WCW, which was just very off because, the Stone Cold Steve Austin persona was pretty much an infinite WWE recognition. So seeing him work with WCW just made no sense whatsoever. I mean, there were decent bouts. Even Booker versus The Rock was decent, but it was weird seeing the show close out with The Rock being the WCW champion, which, I mean, was no longer around. But overall, no, I wouldn't rank it as one of the worst. Looking at my list, I mean, I think the most obvious one is 2010, the whole John Cena and Team WWE versus the Nexus, ruining what could have been a hot angle through the rest of that year. It just wasted potential. I don't know why John at the time thought it'd be a good idea to let to make the Nexus lose that match. He said that they'll build them up later, but we knew that. I think most of us knew at that time that wasn't going to happen, and then just seeing it going forward, it just didn't happen. Wade Barrett never really got his credibility back.
I mean,
at least not in a upper tier card standard.
Right.
But,
I mean, look at the Shield. How well the Shield did when they came in. They went over the established talent right from the get-go. The Shield was pushed really strongly. They won match after match after match, and they had something like an 8-month undefeated streak before they finally lost. They were just dominant. But Nexus, they had that hot angle to start it off, and then at SummerSlam they lost, and then it was just downhill from there. So yeah, it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, the fact that just did not live up to the expectations and the hope that maybe WWE would make some new stars. So Josh, any thoughts on that SummerSlam that we haven't talked about regarding 2010, and what's your least favorite SummerSlam or worst SummerSlam?
Yeah, I may have mentioned or even teased it earlier on. SummerSlam 2010 didn't really do much for me. But there is one nice thing I did enjoy about that match. It was Bret Hart's last match, and he went in there against Heath Slater, and for the portion that he was in there, he looked pretty good. The way he was moving around for his age, and it just, I think, really showed that if Bret Hart didn't unfortunately suffer the stroke and WWE didn't have to risk, and WWE was able to take the risk of him taking bumps, man, Bret Hart maybe could have gave us one last good little decent run there. That was cool. Hey, Steve, I was going to say too, you mentioned nobody went through, we look at where all the stars that were in the Nexus, or they could have been stars, where they are now. It's almost funny. You could say kayfabe-wise, Daniel Bryan, he knew what team to join. Had to be on Cena's team. We see where Daniel is now. But hey, though, looking at that, I wanted to actually go to 2001. I do, for me personally, I'm not going to say it was the worst, but I totally understand why Stefan would feel it could be one of the worst SummerSlams of all time. That whole invasion storyline, I knew at the time as a kid wrestling was scripted, but I didn't know to which extent. But even then, I was like, why are they making storylines like this? This is WCW versus WWE with ECW. This should be the storyline of the century. At SummerSlam, I think we got Jeff Hardy in a ladder match versus RVD. That was cool. And the Steve Austin, that whole year, like I said, Stone Cold was my all-time favorite. So I had to sit there. I'm still a big fan of him, but as a Steve Austin fan, had to sit there and watch Steve Austin reduce himself to being a coward and crying, and oh man, it was kind of tough as a Steve Austin fan at the time. But that match with Kurt Angle, I actually really did enjoy, and surprisingly, it ended in no DQ. In no DQ. It was DQ. It ended in a DQ after 3 tries, and just a story of Kurt Angle bleeding like a stuffed pig and still being coming back and everything against Steve Austin, I thought was a good match. And the main event, that was actually the one match that I got from the invasion that I wanted to see. I wanted to see Booker T versus The Rock. So when they main evented for the WCW title, I was excited, and I was very glad to see Booker T get put in the main event spot, him and The Rock. Of course, the storyline should have been built up better, with both of them being very charismatic on the mic. And I think that's what led to Sting not wanting to come to WWE for so long, because he didn't like, The Rock's looking at Booker and like, who in the blue hell is you, right? Yeah. And, Booker T deserved more respect. But I did like 2001 SummerSlam. I don't think it was the worst of the invasion, and I think soon followed. DDP versus the Undertaker, the way they squashed DDP, and then obviously like 2010. I'm trying to think for more recently. Was there any SummerSlams that I don't think really?
Well, here's one that I thought was really weak that we haven't talked about yet. 2007. Which, can you guys even remember much from that? I'll tell you some of the matches. So this was John Cena beating Randy Orton. They had so many matches. I was already tired of it back then. We had Batista versus the Great Khali by disqualification, winning against Great Khali. I think they had like a basketball built in the storyline. That was the hype for it. That Great Khali squashed a basketball, and Batista said, "Basketballs don't hold grudges." And then that was the setup for their match. Go watch that promo. It's infamous.
Wasn't Great Khali in 2 world title back-to-back? Because the next year he faced Triple H, right?
Yeah, I think so. 2008, other than the Hell in a Cell match, I thought was pretty weak, too. But yeah, this 2007 one, Triple H versus King Booker, this was Triple H's comeback match, and Booker got squashed pretty much and then left the company after this. This was actually his last match. Yeah, I thought this was a really flat SummerSlam. I remember my favorite part of it being a backstage segment with Vince, Crime Time, and William Regal. And William Regal's there dancing with Crime Time. To me, that was the highlight of the pay-per-view. And when the highlight of the pay-per-view is a backstage skit with William Regal, I think it's a pretty dud of a pay-per-view. So yeah, 2007 I thought was pretty weak. 2008. With the exception of the Hell in a Cell match, Edge and Undertaker I thought was pretty weak overall. So yeah, those are the other ones that I would mention. Recent SummerSlams, are there any thoughts you guys have? Anything positive or negative regarding the recent SummerSlams? Stefan, let's start with you. Any thoughts on the recent ones, the Brooklyn era?
Well, I've noticed that is no longer the biggest party of the summer. It is now the biggest event of the summer.
There you
go. I don't know if anybody caught on to that, but they have not called it a party yet. So maybe it's no longer the party, or maybe it's not yet a party. We haven't gotten enough matches.
Well, there's no pyro.
We haven't gotten Roman Reigns' announced match, so it's not a party yet. So, I didn't make it up to the recent ones to try and remember all of the recent ones. I don't remember being disappointed too badly recently out of the SummerSlam. Mostly, I get disappointed at WrestleMania.
All right. Well, Steve-O, any thoughts on some of the recent SummerSlams in Brooklyn, positive or negative?
All right. Well, mentioned earlier, I did like 2016. I did like AJ Styles versus John Cena. That was a solid match. I did like Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins at that time. And I thought, unfortunately, it ended a day later with Finn winning the Universal title, becoming the first ever Universal Champion, but he had to relinquish it due to injury. And he hasn't really recovered since. Unfortunately, I saw that as oh my God, Finn's going to be so huge on the main roster. And now if you look at it, it hasn't played out quite as well. Also for 2016, Charlotte defeated Sasha Banks. I know that happened a lot back and forth. As for other recent moments, I actually did like 2015 with basically The Undertaker and Lesnar's rematch from WrestleMania 30. It was done a little later, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice little grudge match, and it led to their Hell in a Cell match later that year as well. I thought that was pretty solid. But yeah, there was nothing really. No SummerSlams in recent memory have stood out as very bad or just they're either nothing special or I've enjoyed them. I wouldn't consider any of these most recent ones a part of the worst. How about you, Sun Goshawaku?
Yeah, so some of those recent SummerSlams, I also wanted to mention right quick, 2009, I enjoyed that SummerSlam as well, and I enjoyed the main event, CM Punk and Jeff Hardy in I think it was a ladder or TLC match.
It was a TLC match.
TLC, yeah. Okay, and I remember The Undertaker coming back at the end. I thought that was good stuff. And some of the matches you actually listed out, AJ Styles versus John Cena was awesome. I enjoyed the match, and I thought it was one of the one of the better times they did things. Like if they had to feel they had to give Cena his win back, at least this time they let AJ Styles, but I remember those were two of CM Punk and AJ, both two of John Cena's best rivals, I think, in the recent memory. They let AJ Styles beat Cena clean, and they let him go on a nice lengthy reign as champion, and then they had Cena beat him, but they at least waited to make sure AJ Styles gets established first. So I thought that was cool. And The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar, I thought their match at SummerSlam is what the match at WrestleMania 30 should have been. So I thought that was great. The only thing was the finish, but what was really nice about this match, and this is when Brock Lesnar was in his Suplex City phase, I think this really proved that Brock Lesnar still could have a good match, even if he's relying on suplexes. Just a nice back and forth of him and The Undertaker going at it. So I thought that was really good stuff. And I enjoyed the Fatal 4-Way last year. I think that was the Fatal 4-Way last year in the main event. Brock Lesnar in these multi-man matches usually does pretty well. That was pretty cool. They made Braun Strowman look like a beast, and Roman took the fall. And it's looking back on it now, because we thought, like, okay, this is setting up WrestleMania. It just almost felt like they wasted our time because they still haven't pulled the trigger on Roman. And I've said before in my own videos that, WWE, either go there or don't. Stop wasting the fans' time with that. If this is your guy, go with it. If not,
Cooper, get off the can.
Right. But yeah, those are some of the big moments. And Sasha Banks, of course, and Charlotte, I thought was a really intense match. I enjoyed the matches of that whole rivalry. I just wish they would have given Sasha a lengthy title reign. We still haven't got it. But yeah, I thought Charlotte and Sasha showed a lot of passion in that match. There were some parts that I think were kind of reckless that almost made me go like, oh no, please don't drop Sasha on her head or whatever, something like that. But overall, I thought that was good stuff. So yeah, some of like the big main top matches really stand out to me in recent memory. What was the WWE Championship match? Was it Jinder Mahal? Who was he facing last year? I don't even remember.
Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. See, yeah, and I think we all would have loved Nakamura to get his moment or something there on that moment. Yeah, Steve, I know you've been outspoken about Jinder Mahal Maharaja. But yeah, I mean, I think in recent memory, the big main matches of SummerSlam stand out, but I don't think recently we've had like that top to bottom, like really great card since earlier this decade.
Yeah, hopefully this SummerSlam can be one of the more memorable ones. It feels like it's been a while. 2013 I think was the really last great SummerSlam. We'll see if this year can actually be a top tier SummerSlam. I mean, there's 31 in the can. This will be the 32nd one. We'll see how it goes. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap up this video. Thank you all for watching, and thank you guys for being part of the panel today. Let's go ahead and do the plugs. Steve-O, let's start with you. Your plugs.
All right. This is my group, Too Sweet Cosplay. It's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we're going to actually be at Wizard World Chicago this year. It's going to be from August 23rd to the 26th. If you use promo code 2SWEET20, you'll save 20% off single day and weekend admissions. So come check out our page and check out our booth at Wizard World Chicago.
All right. And Josh, your plugs.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, I do a lot of voiceover stuff. Particularly, I know a lot of you out there being wrestling fans. I do cover the main, all the main shows. Basically, I'll go ahead and do podcast style videos after that, covering all the main shows. And of course, as you could probably tell, if you're an anime fan, a Dragon Ball fan, I definitely cover Dragon Ball podcasts and everything regarding Dragon Ball Super voiceover fandom. So if you want to hear me do lots of different type of voices and really dark demon voices and just get really into character and all these different types of voices, you can hear me out on there. And biggest thing I've been working on is my own short film called Battle of Deception, where I play the character Decep. I wrote, edit, produced all of it and everything, working on it, done several hours, 4,000 plus hours over the past 5 years. So if you're definitely into like that shonen manga and anime, this is kind of like anime come to life with a ton of visual effects. Definitely check it out. I got a teaser trailer and the behind the scenes all on my channel. So jam-packed with a lot of fun content. I love meeting wrestling fans and anime fans and just talking about all that stuff. And thank you you for having me on, Aaron, Riff, and great seeing you again, Stefan. It was great meeting you guys there, and to be here on No DQ once again. Like I said, it's truly been an honor, and this is a great discussion. I enjoyed talking everything with you guys. And that being said, guys, you can check me out YouTube /Sun Go Shuaku, Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, all the same name, Sun Go Shuaku.
Absolute pleasure to have you on today. I really enjoyed having you guys on here for this. And Stefan, let's go ahead and do your plugs.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter. Just go to nodq.com/Stefan. That's STEFAN. And if you like my shirt, go support NoDQ. Go to nodq.com/shirts, and it'll take you to Pro Wrestling Tees, where I believe, Aaron, you've got 21.
Something like that.
Or maybe more than that. There's somewhere around 20 different shirts where you can go support nodq.com. And, of course, the best way to support nodq.com, tell a friend, spread the word. Anybody that likes wrestling, you can get all your news at nodq.com. And then you can go to nodq.com's YouTube channel, obviously, here, and get even more wrestling content. Thank you for having me on, Aaron. And, of course, somebody go out there and talk to me about wrestling.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thank you all again for watching, and that'll wrap it up for this edition of the No DQ panel. We will see you all next time.